Hello everyone. Today, let's take a walk around First Avenue, Upper East Side, Manhattan, New York. As we walk, I'll be telling you the story of Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, one of the most classic books of all time. It's a compelling tale about a young scientist who creates a living creature and then has to face the horrific consequences. This book is perfect for a summary because it has a thrilling plot, lots of horror elements, and deep philosophical themes about science, morality, and human nature. To make it easy for you to follow along, I'll be dividing the story today into 4 parts. Chapter 1: Destructive Ambition. The story of Victor Frankenstein, a tragic warning about the blind ambition of man, begins in his youth. Born into a distinguished and wealthy family in Geneva, Switzerland, he was raised with love and a comprehensive education. From a young age, Victor displayed a sharp intellect and an intense fascination with natural science. He was not content with conventional knowledge, always yearning to delve into the universe's greatest mysteries, especially the origin and nature of life itself. This obsession grew as Victor attended the University of Ingolstadt in Germany. He had once been drawn to ancient natural philosophers, but later, under the guidance of a professor named Waldman, he shifted to more modern fields like chemistry and anatomy. He realized that with new scientific tools, man could not only understand, but also control the laws of nature. From that, a crazy and bold idea began to form in his mind, to cross the final boundary of life and death, to become the creator of life from inanimate matter. With a fierce belief that he would bring a great benefit to humanity, he threw himself into his work with a mad frenzy. He no longer cared about friends, family, or any other joy. All of his time and energy were dedicated to a single goal: to discover the secret of life. He researched tirelessly, reading ancient and modern books, visiting cemeteries, morgues, and slaughterhouses to gather materials for his experiment. In Victor's imagination, his work was not just an experiment, but a revolution. He believed he would be able to resurrect the dead and even create a new race, a perfect and immortal species of man. Victor worked in an isolated attic room, hidden from the outside world. It was a macabre place, with only dry bones, chemical jars, and surgical tools. He lived in complete solitude, with no friends visiting, no letters from his family. He ate sparingly, stayed up for many nights, and worked with a frantic focus, neglecting his physical and mental health. Victor's goal was to create a creature of immense size to make it easier to manipulate the body parts. He spent months piecing together different body parts, every piece of flesh, every shard of bone, connecting them with sinews, muscles, and blood vessels. Although he dreamed of creating a perfect model of beauty, the work was terrifying. He had to handle the most grotesque things and confront the decay and putrefaction of death. However, he convinced himself that these sacrifices were necessary to achieve ultimate glory. When the work was nearly complete, Victor's excitement reached its peak. He had placed his creature on a special operating table, ready for the crucial moment. Outside, a violent storm was roaring, lightning tearing through the night sky. The flickering light of the storm illuminated the room, creating a chilling and mysterious atmosphere. At 1 o'clock in the morning, everything was ready. Victor used a powerful electric current to transmit life into the motionless body. His heart pounded violently in his chest. He held his breath, waiting. Then a moment of absolute horror took place. The gigantic body began to stir slowly. It trembled, it twitched. Then it slowly opened its eyes. They were not the clear eyes of a new human being, but a dull yellow eye that Victor had never seen. Immediately, horror washed over him, replacing all joy and pride. He had created a tall, repulsive creature, one with a wrinkled face, black lips, and jet-black hair. Its monstrous appearance was the complete opposite of the perfect model he had imagined. Instead of a work of art, he had created a monstrosity, a monster. In a fit of terror, Victor fled. He could not bear the sight of his own creation. He rushed out of the eerie room, ran down the stairs, and buried himself in a delirious, nightmare-filled sleep. In his dream, he saw himself embracing Elizabeth, his future wife, but she transformed into the lifeless body of his mother, with worms crawling all over her. That dream was a warning from his subconscious about what he had done. He had created life from death, and now death was clinging to him like a shadow. When Victor awoke, he was haunted by horror. He knew that the creature was still in the attic room, a living reminder of his own madness. He had created life, but he could not accept it. His impulsive action was not just a rejection, but a cruel betrayal. It initiated an inevitable chain of tragedies, leaving him unable to escape the shadow of his obsession, condemned to live forever in solitude.
Chapter 2. From Innocence to Hatred. When Victor Frankenstein fled in terror, the creature he had created was left alone, a giant child in an adult's body. It had no knowledge, no name, and no memory of a past. The entire world was a chaotic jumble of raw, confusing sensations. The bright sunlight hurt its eyes. The cold air made its body tremble, and the singing of birds echoed in its ears as a foreign sound. It moved clumsily. Every step was an effort. The creature's first days were a struggle for survival. It learned how to find food from plants, drink water from streams, and protect itself from the cold. By chance, it found a fire left behind, and with the curiosity of a child, it touched the flame and recoiled in pain. After understanding the nature of fire, it learned to use its warmth for heat and to cook food, a basic lesson in intelligence. It moved from place to place, always hiding in the forest, like a lost animal. The creature's first encounter with humanity was a fateful moment. When it entered a village, the people were terrified by its hideous appearance and attacked it with stones. Physically and emotionally hurt, the creature realized a bitter truth. It was a grotesque outcast, a being to be shunned. Its innocence was shattered. It learned that, in this world, acceptance was not for those who were different. Pushed into solitude, the creature found a hiding place in a small hovel adjacent to a cottage. From a gap in the wall, it began to observe a peasant family living there. An old, blind man named M. de Lacy, his son Felix, and his daughter Agatha. Their cottage, though poor, was filled with love. The creature spent months silently observing them, and through that, it learned everything it knew about the human world. It learned language by listening to them speak. First, there were simple sounds, then gradually complex words. It learned how to read when Felix taught his sister. It read the books they had, including History of the Ottoman Empire, Milton's books, and Sorrows of Young Werther. Through those stories, it understood the concepts of history, literature, and above all, human emotion. It learned about love, pain, loneliness, and revenge. It began to understand that wealth was not what brought happiness, and that love was the most important thing. By observing the de Lacy family, the creature felt a pure joy. It had learned to love them. When it saw them struggling with the cold and poverty, it secretly helped them by bringing firewood and clearing the snow. It yearned to become a part of them. However, it also knew that its hideous appearance would never allow for that. It realized that in the human world, appearance was everything. The pain of not belonging brought it to despair. The creature's despair reached its climax when it learned that M. de Lacy was blind. He devised a plan. He would approach the old man when he was alone, as he could not see its terrifying appearance. In a moment of hope, he believed that if he could speak with the old man, he would see its good soul. One afternoon, when Felix and Agatha were out, the creature gathered all its courage to enter the cottage. With a trembling voice, it told the old man the story of its loneliness. It begged for help and compassion, saying it only craved a friend, someone who could understand it. The kind M. de Lacy listened patiently and with empathy. He said, "I will help you, my poor friend. Tell me everything." However, at that very moment, Felix and Agatha returned. When they saw the creature, panic immediately replaced curiosity. Felix, with a face full of horror, attacked the creature, beating it with a stick. Agatha fainted from fear. The old man's kind words were replaced by the terrified screams of his children. Once again, the creature was rejected. This time, it was no longer innocent. It was deeply wounded. This event was a fateful turning point. All of its hope for acceptance was cruelly extinguished. It had learned that no matter how kind its actions were, it would forever be a monster in the eyes of humans. Love had turned into hatred, and sorrow had turned into rage. In an act of revenge, the creature burned down the de Lacy family's cottage, destroying the place where it had once found a shred of peace. Its journey to find acceptance had ended. From an innocent being, it had transformed into an enemy of humanity. It vowed to find the one who had created it, the one who had brought it into this world only to abandon it. It began a furious journey to find Victor, not for love, but for revenge. It had become a foe to mankind itself, and its tragedy had begun. Chapter 3: The Broken Pact. After being cruelly rejected by the de Lacy family, the creature's innocence was completely gone. Love turned into hatred, and loneliness transformed into rage. It vowed to find the one who had created it, the one who had brought it into this world only to suffer such extreme pain. With a terrifying determination, it began a maddening journey to find Victor. This journey lasted for many months, with the creature following Victor's trail, always lurking in the shadows, a persistent obsession. Finally, it found Victor on a freezing, snowy mountaintop in the Alps. As they faced each other, Victor, filled with absolute horror, prepared to fight. But the creature did not attack. It began to recount its story in a tone that was both deeply sorrowful and coldly rational, a strange mix of hurt and intelligence. It spoke of its loneliness, its rejection, its revulsion, and how it had learned to feel, to love, and to hope, only to be cruelly cast out by humanity. I was innocent and good, but pain has turned me into a monster. You brought me into this world without any sense of responsibility. You abandoned me, and now you must take responsibility for what you have done. Then the creature made a proposal. It did not demand love or acceptance from humanity. It knew that was impossible. All it wanted was a companion, a person like itself. It promised that if Victor created a bride for it, they would both leave Europe, live in the desolate lands of South America, and never harm another human again. Its request sounded fair. It asked for nothing from mankind, only a chance to live a peaceful life with a fellow being. Initially, Victor completely refused. The idea of creating another creature was a nightmare for him. But the creature persuaded him with its sharp logic and genuine despair. In the end, Victor reluctantly agreed. He saw the truth in the creature's words. Its loneliness had turned it into a monster, and if it had a companion, it might find peace and no longer be a threat. Victor returned home and began to fulfill his promise. Although he worked with unceasing anxiety and disgust, He was determined to complete the task. He traveled to England and then to a desolate, isolated island in the Orkney Islands, Scotland. The place was a mirror of his own soul, cold, lonely, and empty. He spent months building a crude laboratory and began his work. This time, however, the work no longer brought him passion and excitement. Every bone, every piece of flesh he pieced together brought him doubt and dread. He began to question the consequences of his actions. He was afraid that the new creature would not accept his monster and they would fight each other. He was afraid that if they did get along, they would reproduce and create a race of devils that would threaten the survival of humanity. Victor's greatest fear was that the new creature would not accept a life of solitude. She might yearn for contact with humans and would find a way to break their pact. This anxiety tormented his mind, turning his working days into a series of living nightmares. One afternoon, as he was nearing completion, Victor looked out the window and saw the creature watching him. Its eyes were filled with hope, a hopeful look that Victor had once seen in himself. But at that moment, horror struck. Victor foresaw the future. He imagined a world dominated by these grotesque creatures, a future for which he would be solely responsible. He could not accept that risk. In a moment of madness and desperation, Victor destroyed his work. He tore the incomplete body of the woman apart, smashed the tools, and crushed the chemical jars. He destroyed not only a creature, but also the last hope of his old friend. The creature's rage exploded. It had witnessed the entire act. It rushed into the lab, letting out a roar filled with pain and fury. "I had hoped you would fulfill your promise, but you betrayed me." The creature vowed to take revenge on Victor by destroying everything he held dear. "I will be with you on your wedding night." It roared, a chilling threat, a promise to turn Victor's happiness.
A promise to turn Victor's happiness into tragedy. This betrayal was a point of no return. It had transformed a creature seeking acceptance into a demon seeking revenge. Victor's actions, born from fear and selfishness, had pushed the creature into final despair. Victor's life became a mad chase as he fled from his own shadow, an enemy he had created, and also a reflection of his own loneliness. Chapter 4: Bloody Revenge and a Tragic End. The creature's chilling threat, "I will be with you on your wedding night," was no idle promise. After destroying its companion, Victor lost everything he held dear. His life became an inescapable chain of tragedies. Everything he cherished was brutally destroyed, and it was all at the hands of the enemy he himself had created. The first murder was that of Victor's dearest friend, Henry. Henry, a warm, kind soul, and the very embodiment of the innocence of the world Victor had abandoned, was murdered in a savage manner. The creature had strangled Henry and left his own tracks to frame Victor, who was then arrested and imprisoned for a time. Henry's death was not just a physical loss, it was a devastating blow to Victor's soul. He realized that the creature did not just want to kill him, but to destroy those he loved, the only people who gave his life meaning. After being cleared and returning to Geneva, Victor decided to marry Elizabeth, the love of his life. Although he knew the creature's threat was real, he completely misunderstood its meaning. He thought the creature would attack him on his wedding night. To protect Elizabeth, he put her in their room and closed the door, a loaded pistol ready. But he was terribly wrong. As Victor waited in the hallway, a horrific scream echoed from the bridal chamber. It was Elizabeth's. Victor rushed into the room and found her lying lifeless, with the creature's gaunt fingers still wrapped around her neck. The sight completely shattered Victor's soul. The creature's revenge was complete. It had taken the last person Victor loved, leaving him to live in a world of absolute solitude, a world he had created himself. The pain of loss transformed Victor into a man consumed by madness and obsession. His sole purpose was no longer science or happiness, but to hunt down and destroy the creature. He began a frenzied chase, crossing the desolate lands of Europe and finally reaching the icy seas of the Arctic. He became an enemy to his own creation. Victor was no longer a scientist, but a hunter. However, the creature was always one step ahead, leading him on an eternal pursuit, like an eternal punishment. The chase lasted for many months, until Victor was completely exhausted, a mere shadow of his former self. He was found by an exploration ship commanded by Captain Robert Walton. In the final hours of his life, Victor recounted his entire tragic story to Walton. He warned Walton about the dangers of blind ambition and the horrific consequences of man's attempt to overstep the bounds of nature. With that final warning, Victor took his last breath, ending a life filled with suffering and regret. After Victor's death, a dramatic event occurred. The creature broke into Walton's cabin, and instead of celebrating its victory, it wept beside Victor's body, expressing deep remorse. It said, "I am a wretch. I sought love, but I only found rejection. I have become a foe to mankind, but I did not wish it. I have committed crimes, but they were only the result of the loneliness and pain that you inflicted upon me." The creature admitted that its purpose in life had ended. It had found its revenge, but it could not find peace. It had become a murderer not by nature, but by the solitude and suffering it was forced to endure. Finally, the creature disappeared into the cold Arctic night, having decided to self-immolate to end its miserable existence. The work concludes with the image of it vanishing into the frigid mist, a symbol of loneliness, pain, and the catastrophic consequences of irresponsibility. And that is the entire tragic story of Victor Frankenstein and his creature. The story ends here. Thank you for walking with me today. I'll see you in our next adventures with other fascinating stories. Goodbye for now.